Welcome to Primetime Conversations. Here's your host, James Tunstall.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. And today, we've got a very special guest, someone who's opened many doors for me at the start of my podcasting career, especially in the wrestling world. The one and only Mr. Simon Rothstein. Simon, how are you doing today?
Oh, good to see you, James, mate. Yeah, it's funny being the person on the podcast rather than just the one listening in the background telling you not to ask dodgy questions. So it's nice.
I try my best. I think I remember at first I was so nervous. I think my first one was with Ace Austin and Deonna Purrazzo, and I was like super nervous. But eventually, I like to think I grew into it eventually. But yeah, you've always been there to me, and you opened a lot of doors for me, and yeah, it's led on to so much in my short podcasting career.
Yeah, no, I think you do great from the very start. I thought your interviews were great. Everyone's always nervous the first couple of times, but you wouldn't have known it. So yeah, no, I think you guys do a great job. That's why I'm pleased to be on it. Pleased for you to grill me tonight.
Yeah, we'll start off something a little bit fun. I know you're a big, massive Arsenal fan.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was a bit disappointed. I'm a Liverpool fan, so I was a little bit disappointed last week's result because you had a man sent off, and I'm like, wow, we couldn't capitalise on that.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was very strange. 10 men against Liverpool at Anfield. I really thought you were going to smash us, but it was a great performance by us. I've got tickets for the second leg in 2 days' time, but there are now rumours just before we started this chat. I was checking Twitter, and there's rumours that game might be called off now. So I hope not, because I've got tickets. At this point, you just want to get the games done. But yeah, I think we're having a good season. I mean, I don't think we're on the same level as Chelsea or Liverpool, and certainly not Man City. But I think we're having a good season. Arteta's getting it right. You've got to trust the process. But it is strange us letting out all these players on loan and then cancelling games because we haven't got a full squad. But also, it upset a lot of Spurs fans. So,
Yeah.
On balance, I think it was a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to delay the game till February when we get Salah and Mane back, I would appreciate that because without them, we're a little bit toothless. I mean, I'm thankful we got the win against Brentford yesterday, but yeah, there's a big drop in quality when Salah's not playing for us.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I mean, when they're away, Brentford are the sort of teams that you want to be playing. So, yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So we're talking about your advertising career. So how did you get into it? Is it something you always wanted to do growing up, or is it just something that spurred the moment?
So I was originally a journalist. So my background was, like a lot of people, went to school, went to uni, didn't really know what I wanted to do. But while I was at uni, my hobby was writing for the student newspaper. I had a show on the student radio station, long before podcasts were a thing, because I'm now in my early 40s. So before people knew what podcasts were, we used to have radio stations. I think there are still a few of them. We used to have a student radio station. I had my own show on it, like a panel show. Different people would come in, would have a topic of the day. Nowadays that might be Boris partying or what's happening with immigration or something. We'd have a couple of people on both sides, and my job was to try and keep the peace and get some information out of them. So I just really loved it, and I just thought that was a good hobby of mine. But I thought, I can't actually become a journalist because I don't know any journalists. My parents aren't journalists. I didn't know how to get in. So I was doing economics and politics course, and I was thinking of going, into the finance industry or something like that, which again is a very hard one to get into. But at that point, a friend of mine, Jonathan, who'd left school and not gone to uni and gone straight into journalism, he'd done really well for himself. He got himself a job on our local paper. And then at that point, he was working on the Sun's website. So firstly, I thought, well, if this guy that I went to school with can do it as a friend of mine, and he didn't have any connections, then I can certainly do it. And secondly, I now had a connection that was him. So I, out of university, applied for jobs in the sort of media world. And my first job was on the Guardian's website. They just launched a website. It was a great time to want to be a journalist because all these traditional media outlets had launched websites and were looking for sort of young tech savvy people to come and work on them. So there's a lot of doors opening that maybe aren't open so much now. They're fully staffed, but at that time it was a really good time. Guardian just launched a website and they needed someone, not a journalist, but someone to come, what they called user help. So my job there, I applied to it, successfully got the job, and my job there was to help people navigate the website. So people would write in with problems and I'd help them with it, and also to moderate the talk boards. As you can imagine, on any sort of forum, the early days of social media, there was a lot of moderation to be done, and I was a sort of judge of that. So I really enjoyed that job, and I got to sort of see and work alongside the journalists. Again, it was people just like me. I thought, well, I can do this. So I spoke to the Guardian and said I wanted to do the course, which is called the NCTJ for any listeners, and it's still going. for any listeners that out there that are interested. And I could do a fast track one because I already had my degree. And the idea was on Fridays you could go and do work experience somewhere. And they said, that's great, we'll back you. You don't need to come and do work experience with us because we know you. But if you're looking for a job at the end of it, there could be one here, which was fantastic. Meanwhile, I got some experience on my local paper and also at the Sun's website through my friend who'd been working there. And I love working at Sun. I like yourself, James. I love entertainment. I love celebrity. I love film. I love music. So I did my work experience there, got to know them really well. One of my first ever things was those days, again, there was so much opportunity online because it was just booming and very short staffed. So I got that someone was sick and they said, do you want to go and interview the Lighthouse family today? It's like, great, okay, I'll go and interview the Lighthouse family, on my second or third day. Again, like you, really nervous. Do I want to go next one? Do I want to go and interview Mystique? And can't say those early interviews, I don't even think they still exist anymore. But if they did, I can't say they're probably the finest thing you're ever going to read, but it gave me sort of a passion for it. And just got lucky. The lady that was the online showbiz editor at the Sun's website at that point had just been poached by the paper just as I was finishing my course. And the editor sat me down and said, look, do you want to come in, trial basis, see how you get on doing a bit of showbiz because Jackie, who is moving to the paper. So I said, great. And then from there on, just sort of, my view was work hard, be the first one in, be the first one to offer to make cups of tea, be the first one to cover a story, be the first one to send ideas. Try and always be the last one to go, make sure you're, probably not great advice for people's mental health, but make sure you're always trying to check the site, make sure you're always on call, just trying to get ahead, really, just try and impress. And I did impress, which was really good. And eventually I was made online showbiz editor. Then I moved up and I was sort of second in command of the Sun's website. And I was also working for the Bazaar column on the paper, which is still going, fantastic column. I worked for Victoria Newton, then Gordon Smart, and even edited that some Sundays. So there's some Sundays where that Bazaar column, even if it had someone else's picture and it was edited by me. So that was career goals, really. I ticked so many boxes. At that point, I got to go to all the music festivals, all the film premieres. I remember going to the Family Guy premiere in LA. Wrestling, which we're both big fans of, and I know a lot of your listeners are fans of, was a big part of that as well, because all throughout my career there, I wrote the wrestling column for the website, and got some stories in the paper as well. And again, that was something that it was my passion. And I said to them, I know there's not a wrestling job here, but in my lunch break, can I write about wrestling? Can I go and do these things? And then they said yes, and they saw the hits it got. It was, and I believe probably still is after football, their second biggest traffic section throughout the year of the sports. Yeah. I mean, obviously something like Wimbledon or the Rugby World Cup will get a hit that time, but consistently the wrestling, as you see how much traffic it does wrestling. I'm sure, I know from our conversation, when you get a wrestler on your podcast, you get tons of figures. If you had a cricketer on, you probably wouldn't. And it's strange because cricket's one of the country's top sports, but wrestling is so popular. Yeah. And there was, sadly, a wrestler may pass away and we'd do a tribute, and that would get as many hits as, say, something like when Heath Ledger sadly passed away. So there was a real thirst for it. I felt I really proved myself there. That's not really answered your question, how I got into PR and social media, but that's how I started my career in media in general. And then, should we talk a bit now about how I sort of made that jump, which is a bit of a career change?
Yeah, I mean, Will, before we jump on there, I mean, being a journalist, it's interesting, and it's a two-way sword. There's a lot of respected journalists, and then there's journalists what's outright hated. I won't name names, but what's been, you said you've done a lot of these traveling and interviewing people, but when you was I suppose in the newsroom, I suppose you could say, what was some of for example, someone's like, right, I've got the scoop, I've got this real big story, and all of a sudden they got left on the egg with their face. Was any things like that whatever happened?
Yeah, we had a bit like that, and I probably had that a couple of times happen to me. You can't go through a career somewhere like the Sun and not. I mean, I was speaking to my friend that I mentioned before the other day about, I'm glad I wasn't a tabloid journalist today in the world of Twitter, because I imagine it must be a nightmare. Yeah. I think when I was, most of my things were writing about music, film. It wasn't sort of the down and dirty door knocking type of tabloid journalism, but I mean, you can see, because there have been some bad stories over the years, you can see why places like the Sun and other tabloids can get a bad reputation. But like everything on social media, that's exaggerated and journalists are personally attacked. And yeah, I don't think I would want to do that now.
So it sounds like you had a great career in it. So what made you want to do the jump and start SRX and do your own thing?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So there's a few reasons. Firstly, the heyday. I came in towards the end of the heyday of journalism. By the time I'd been doing it about 10 years, it was a very different place. Lots of people being made redundant. Not that, I don't think my job was ever under threat, but I'd had to make members of my team, redundant or cut their hours, which no one really likes to do. I felt that we weren't getting the right investment in stories. A lot of the websites, including The Sun, that time, were going behind paywalls. So we were seeing our traffic drop by like 90% because obviously you're not giving it away for free anymore. People are paying for it. So a lot of things like that. Then also, my wife was pregnant. My daughter was just about to be born. And that was a big thing to me, wanted to be at home a bit more. Like I say, the way I work has always been try and be the first one there, the last to leave, the first to put their hand up for stuff. And that is the culture of newspapers. Everyone's like that. It's not a 9-to-5 job. And even though what I do now isn't 9-to-5 job, I'm my own boss. If I want to take the kids to school, I take them to school. I mean, we just interrupted this chat so I could sort the stuff out for the kids. So exactly, and you can't necessarily do that. So I wanted a better work-life balance. There was that, and then there was a wrestling opportunity came up. I was very close friends with Dixie Carter. I'd worked with her a lot writing the wrestling column, who was the president of what was then TNA Wrestling. And I went to her and I said, look, TNA Wrestling is getting really good. It was just before Hulk came, but it was when AJ was there, Joe was there. I think Angle had just come in. So look, you're getting great publicity. We're covering you a lot of the Sun because you and I have a personal relationship, but there's all these other outlets in the UK that you could really tap into, but you just haven't got someone over here. And your team, 1 or 2 people you've got in the US are already busy doing the whole of the US and North America. So give me a go. And again, she said, okay, come on for a 3-month trial basis. We'll send someone over for a media tour, see how you get on. That person they sent over was Ric Flair, the Nature Boy. So, I mean, it's like a slam dunk, isn't it? So we got him, in the Sun, the Mirror, the Star, on Talk Sport, I think Sky Sports Radio, all these great places. And they were really impressed. And they came on board as SRX's first PR and social media client.
So, yeah, Ric Flair was your first one. So what a way to start off.
Yeah, no, so that was... I mean, the Nature Boy coming over, and then it just went on from there. I've got to work with, do media tours over here with, Kurt Angle, Hulk Hogan, Mick Foley, Ken Anderson. I mean, so many names. I mean, we could be naming them all day. Obviously, so the pandemic really sort of has changed it a bit. Everything's done on Zoom, as we've been doing, James, with our interviews, which are great. I get to meet people over Zoom, the interaction is good, but there's nothing like, I'd love if Sammy Callahan or Rosemary or, any of our top talents, Matt Cardona, Moose, any of our top talents could come over here and, I could take them around for 3-4 days, visit people like you do. Often we'll get like a hotel room, do like interviews back to back, and I'll take them to Talk Sport or to the Sun or wherever. And it's really, really, really good. The talent love it. And I really miss that. I'm looking forward to getting back to it. And then, so Impact Wrestling was my first client and my first foray into the PR world.
And you mentioned you was a wrestling fan growing up. So one of the big things, and we've spoken about it privately, like the Maximum Impact tours they used to do, feels like a lifetime ago now, especially for yourself, but they were so popular in the UK. I don't think people understand. There was even talks at one point that TNA should just move to the UK in general because it was so popular over here, and it was on Challenge TV every week, and it was getting like stupid numbers. The numbers were so good. I would imagine you had quite a few fun stories, like guiding the talent on these Impact tours.
Yeah, I mean, the talent absolutely loved them. Absolutely, because they would come over to the UK, have, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 people at shows, massive queues around the block for autograph signings, even like on random, we would have, Magnus in a toy shop in Wolverhampton, and we'd have hundreds of people turn up for a signing. It's amazing. It was just like the height of, it was just a perfect storm of, we were on Challenge TV, which was on Freeview, whereas WWE, who was obviously the number one at the time and still is, they were on Sky Sports, so you had to pay a subscription. So we had loads of viewers. Often what I found was that our signings and our events, alongside the hardcore wrestling fans like you and I both are, the lifelong ones, there were just lots of families, lots of kids, people who just watched it on Challenge TV, like they might watch The Voice or Strictly Come Dance or something like that. So it was a totally different fan base. And I think the wrestlers also like that because the reactions were more genuine. you know, the faces and heels could be proper faces and heels. You weren't trying to cater to smart audience that have seen everything 100 times. But then, you know, it was just the most. We did fan parties, and that's where the real sort of smart fans came. The fan parties, they were great. You would literally come and have a drink at the bar with Spud or Jeremy Borash, or I remember Dixie did one, and fans asked her questions live. It's just, you know, they were absolutely fantastic days. And unfortunately, obviously, the popularity of TNA did wane a little bit. Don't need to cover old ground, but people know why. And then just as we build it back up, the pandemic hit. So for about 3-4 years, we haven't been able to do anything.
Yeah, we still got a lot of restrictions in place this year, but I would imagine in 2023, that's one that goes to hopefully bring Impact over for a tour.
I mean, I would hope so. I'm not responsible for those sort of decisions, but I would love so. I mean, what we did last time we were able to tour wasn't so much a tour, but it was a show at the MediaCon in Manchester. I don't know if you remember that one, where we did a TNA versus UK show, and actually you got Sami Callihan versus Jimmy Havoc. And then you got, I think it was LAX versus Jody Fleisch and Johnny Storm. So actually, for fans like you and I, there were dream matches on that. I think Lana Austin against, I can't remember who it was, but whoever our Knockouts champion was at the time, she got these dream UK versus US matches that actually a lot of fans preferred than just seeing a regular episode of Impact. So that may be something we can do as well. I'm dead excited. I remember, I've got this really clear memory of doing one of the tours. What we would do is we'd bring over a major talent. I think in that case, it may have even been Hulk Hogan for 3-4 days beforehand, which I do the media tour. Then I go on the tour at the arenas, would have sometimes up to like 100 journalists and their guests at the tours. You know, all of those were okay after parties. And I remember we just finished the Wembley after party on the last night, and walking through an empty Wembley arena, we've done it. This has been the most amazing experience. I'd love to experience that again, definitely. So I think you'll find that people that want to tour the UK most, and not even the fans that want it, but it's us who work for Impact. We badly want it, but let's see what happens with the pandemic. Let's, you know, it's expensive times. Let's check the demands there. You know, there's even more competition in the wrestling marketplace than ever, but I'd love to do it.
Yeah, I mean, every wrestler I've spoken to a fair few now. Every single one of them always says how much they love the UK and touring the UK. So I would imagine that, and there's a lot of Impact stars who's on the roster now who I don't think's even been to the UK, even possibly. So I would imagine they're all excited to eventually come over. But like we mentioned, the popularity of the UK TNA audience was so big that we even got our own show, British Boot Camp, which I absolutely loved. Did you have much involvement in that?
Yeah, British Boot Camp was brilliant. I mean, I had a lot of involvement in it. I was involved pitching the idea to Challenge TV originally, getting it green lit, working with Jeremy Borash on it. I even appeared in a couple of episodes, helping sort of identify the talent. I mean, to be fair, Jeremy Borash and Jeff Jarrett identified the talent they wanted for the first one, but I helped them work on that. Help work with the talent and what they were doing. It was, you know, help find Rollerball Rocco for it, who sadly since passed away. But one of my all-time great memories was working with Rollerball Rocco, this absolute legend of British wrestling, on that show and watching how he interacted with the new generation. Yeah, you know, absolute career highlight working on British Boot Camp. And we got our wrestling fans got our own show about UK wrestlers. I think, I mean, with full respect to NXT UK and things other companies have done, I still think British Boot Camp stands head and shoulders as the best thing an American company's done with UK stars. Yeah,
one of my earliest interviews now, and it feels like a lifetime ago, but I actually interviewed the Blossom Twins. Yeah. And we spoke about British Boot Camp and how much fun that they had on it. And it was, I mean, they had a good career afterwards. Rockstar Spuds obviously had a good career, and the other guy we can't really talk about too much. But season 2 came about as well, and season 2 was even bigger. And besides Grado, I think everyone in season 2's went to WWE one point or another. I know Rampage's on NXT UK and a few of the others, and obviously Mark Andrews and stuff. So you identified so much talent on British Boot Camp that they've all gone on to sign for WWE eventually.
Yeah, I mean, I think those guys are so talented they all would have done anyway. Or one sec. Right, cool. Should we do? Yeah, I'll do that answer again.
Yep.
So I think, yeah, I mean, all those guys and girls were so talented. I mean, Nikki Storm was another one that we had, Kaylee Ray. Dave Mastiff. I think they were all so talented. They all would have signed with the WWE eventually anyway. But I still get a sense of pride seeing things like, you know, Nikki Asher. She's now winning their title over there and stuff like that. But yeah, all those guys would have made it anyway. But again, just to work with all those talents was just the best. I mean, it was interesting. Again, with both seasons, the person we thought was going to win at the start didn't win. With the first season, we thought the Blossoms were going to win. They seemed to be, you know, the obvious TV ready. The WWE had the Bellas. The Blossoms were great. But then Spud just blew us away. And again, with the second season, everyone thought Grado was going to win. Grado was already a superstar, and Mark Andrews blew us away. So it was just interesting to work on the series to develop. My one regret was with British Boot Camp, with both series, I worked on the UK side. I was heavily involved in that. But once they left for the US, that was it. The US guys took over. So I never got to be that part of the journey, which I do regret. But if you remember the second British Boot Camp, we actually did a show at York Hall, Bethnal Green.
They did, yeah.
Actually, the whole show with all those matches that people then, the judges then voted on. It was just an incredible experience. I'm glad that you and other people and other fans remember it so fondly. And I think you can watch episodes on Impact Plus. So anyone listening to this that hasn't seen it yet, check it out on Impact Plus. And if you're a fan of myself, which I don't think anyone is, you might see me pop up.
I've watched it. Obviously, now that I know you, I'm like, I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch them now. I'm thinking, there's Simon. But no, it was great. And for some reason, wrestling and reality TV always seems to work. Obviously, British Boot Camp, WWE back in the day was like Tough Enough and things like that. It always seems to be a good mix. And obviously, one of the things that happened a couple of years ago was World of Sport as well. And that seemed to be having a good run. But unfortunately, that didn't work out. But no, it's all been good. And yeah, Impact Wrestling going forward. Fingers crossed we can finally get over this pandemic, which I think, like, not to get too political, but we can get political. It's my podcast. I can talk about whatever I want. I think eventually it's just going to be something we're just going to have to live with, like the flu, eventually. I think, don't get me wrong, a lot of people at the start died, unfortunately, and some people still are, but it's nothing compared to the rates of, say, the flu. The flu is 10 times worse, but I think the original strain, yeah, it was terrible, but I know the Omicron variant is a lot less deadly, but it's just more transmissible. But yeah, it's just been crazy how much that's affected the UK. And like when we first went to lockdown, I was like, wow, I couldn't really believe. I actually just finished doing a job. I was on my way home, and it was like 28 days later, the streets were just empty.
Yeah, it has been so like something out of one of those post-apocalyptic movies, hasn't it? But yeah, hopefully, like you say, we're moving on, we're getting through it, and yeah, no, if live wrestling can return, and we can, you know, there are some shows coming back, and I suggest I know Progress are back in town, and they always do great shows, and we worked with them a lot in the early days with British Boot Camp. They were our partners on it. You know, they very kindly let us come and film at their shows. I remember Spud getting a fantastic heel reaction there. So you know, there's other shows for people to check out, but you know, as soon as we can come back, we want to.
Well, imagine Spud, obviously you work with him, British Boot Camp, and obviously his time in Impact. Now that he's available again, I would imagine he's someone you would love to see back in Impact Wrestling.
Yeah, again, I don't make those decisions, but I love Spud. I think he's got one of the best minds for the business that I've ever met, and I knew that from the second I met him. He's got this incredible mind for the business, and yeah, he'd be an asset to any company. I'd love to work with him again. I'd love to have him do it. Love to listen to him do an interview with you, for example, and just listen to what he has to say about the business.
And as a fan, I suppose you could say, looking outwards, looking in, obviously one of the big things for Impact last year was the partnership with AEW and Kenny Omega becoming champion. And I remember when I actually messaged you the day after he won the AEW title and said we was going to show up at Impact. I'm like, you know anything about this? He's like, nope. What was your overall thoughts on the partnership, and do you think it could have been handled a bit better? Because if I had to nitpick at it, and the one thing that did disappoint me, I know he dropped the title to Christian, which we all love Christian, and he dropped it to Alexander, or Moose cashed him essentially. My biggest sticking point was that Omega didn't drop it straight to an Impact wrestler.
Right, I mean, that's interesting. First off, to pick up on your initial thing when you text me and I didn't know, I honestly don't know. I mean, with decisions like that are going to be a surprise, they keep it so tight. I mean, you don't see much leaking out of Impact Wrestling at all. You used to in the day someone had a burrito rather than a sandwich for lunch and it'd be all over the dirt sheets, but now it's very, very tight, right? Nobody knows. I didn't know. I like how it went. I always trust the process. I think the way it paid off and how Moose has become this massive heel out of it, and how Josh Alexander has really sort of come from a guy who was a tag team guy to an X Division guy to a main eventer. So we've made Josh Alexander as the main eventer. Moose is a really fantastic heel. We had that great moment with Christian coming back. I think for a lot of old school fans, a lot of maybe more recent fans will think what you think. Yeah, Kenny should have dropped it to Moose directly. But I think a lot of old school fans love seeing Christian back in Impact for a run. What a lot of people wanted. Love that program with Josh. And I think you couldn't have done that program with Josh and Omega. It worked well with Josh and Christian. I think the payoff with Moose. Again, a lot of people didn't like it at the time, but now it's growing on them.
Yeah. What's your thoughts of Mickie James, the Knockouts champion? Looks like she's coming up at the Rumble.
Again, I found out when you did. Brilliant for us. I think she said she might come out to a hardcore country music, might come out with a belt. I think the forbidden door's open. I mean, that's the one thing I'll say about the AEW Impact storyline. I mean, I really liked it. I know some fans like yourself have got certain criticisms of it, but the forbidden door's now a thing. I mean, Tony Khan's got that term over, hasn't he? You can't wait to see what's going to happen next. Mickie James in the Rumble, Bullet Club are in Impact. Who's going to turn up elsewhere? It's just amazing. Don Callis is now with Kenny in AEW. Anyone can turn up anywhere, and I think it's an exciting time to be a fan. Every show's must watch. And, WWE are now going to have some Impact Wrestling fans tuning into the Royal Rumble, so it's a win for them as well.
Yeah, I think the most surreal moment for me watching Impact last year was the Rock inducting Ken Shamrock into the Hall of Fame.
Amazing. Again, amazing. And again, that was on a call, and they said this, brief that this is going to happen, be ready for it. It happened. And Rock is someone that I never really worked with. I interviewed him once when I was at the Sun, and he was a great guy, but again, that's I was probably one of 100 people he spoke to that day as part of a press junket for a film he was doing. But he's a great guy, and I'd love to work with him. Stone Cold, again, when I was interviewed at the Sun, was one of the greatest guys to speak to. Real passion for the business. I remember once pre-WWE event we did a round table with media from around the world, and I was the only one who was really a fan. Everyone else was asking questions about, is it real? Does it hurt? That sort of stuff. And I can't remember. I asked him, do you think they should have put over Eddie Guerrero in this match last week? And he loved it. And he wanted to speak for half an hour about who they should be putting over and didn't care about the other questions. So, I think as a wrestling journalist yourself, wrestlers do appreciate people that are fans that know the business. They want to speak about what they love, like anyone does.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that's helped me, because I've been a fan since I can remember. When I've interviewed wrestlers, I'd like to think that I know quite a bit about wrestling. And when I ask them something like, wow, even I forgot about that, I think they appreciate it when you have taken an interest in their careers and you've the time to do research on it.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I think people really do appreciate it. I think, if there's some tips for some people that want to be wrestling journalists or journalists generally, or are just starting out, I think one of the things, and we spoke about this briefly about the call, is try not, when I first started interviewing, I'd have a list of questions written out in front of me. I'd ask the question, they'd answer, I'd look down at the next one. And I mean, I think everyone does that when you start out, but actually being able to have free-flowing conversations, see where it takes you, is always much better. Always do your research. I mean, I got caught up, never with wrestlers, but I got caught out a couple of times with maybe pop stars, wasn't that interested in pop music, didn't bother to research, and then you're in there and you can feel yourself curling up into a ball because you really don't know, you're really out of your depth. And I think especially, maybe you've come into wrestling journalism because you're a WWE fan and you're interviewing Impact talent, make sure you go and watch their matches, make sure you read up on them, do all of that sort of stuff.
Cool. Well, so we're down to the final segment of the show. So it's a new segment, Prime Time 9. So I'm going to ask you your favorite topics, and you just basically tell everyone about yourself. So we'll start off, your favorite movie.
It changes all the time. Probably Pulp Fiction, I think, is just the classic of the genre, but any Tarantino movie, the early Kevin Smith movies. Saw a great movie with my partner the other day, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, which was I'd recommend that. Of new movies or newish movies, that's great. I'd really recommend that. Bad Times at the El Royale is good. I like those sort of highly stylized, really cool movies. Good soundtracks.
Yeah, I actually spoke to the lead singer of Bowling for Soup, and his favorite movie was Pulp Fiction as well.
Oh, there we go. He's in good company. I mean, it's a bit of an obvious one, but it's just such a good movie. It's hard to look past it. On the sort of thing you would expect me to say, Chicago, the musical, is a absolutely fantastic movie. So that's my secret pleasure movie.
I still haven't seen it.
You got to watch.
Cool.
Brilliant.
Favorite song?
That's another really difficult. It's difficult to have one. Probably people say it's difficult to have one favorite song. I kind of want to say Bowling for Soup now, but probably In Bloom by Nirvana. I think it's the first. I remember everyone at my school sort of humming it. It's the first sort of song that I liked that was probably alternative, was like my type of music.
Awesome. Favorite city or town you've worked in?
I mean, I love London, probably New York. I think it's brilliant, but also Boston. I think Boston probably, if I had to work or live anywhere, Boston has this beauty of having some of the coolness of New York and some of the fun, but being much quieter. So you can actually walk down the street without bumping into 100 people. But I love London. I love where I live in Chelmsford as well.
Cool. Favorite food?
Favorite food? Chicken soup. Traditional Jewish chicken soup. Any Jewish listeners you've got will know what I mean. You can't beat it. I'd say my mum's, but I think I've almost surpassed her.
Yeah, awesome. Favorite video game?
Mario Kart.
Okay.
No. I mean, probably I've had FIFA phases, I've had Pro Evo phases, I've had Champman phases, but Mario Kart's the one I always come back to. And now my little boy's a gamer, so we play against each other. I can't say I win very much.
I was gonna say favorite sport, but I presume football.
Yeah, football, 100% football. And if you're counting wrestling, then they're tied.
Yeah. Favorite fan experience for yourself? So fan moments. I would imagine a moment where you've been around the wrestlers, probably.
Yeah, I mean, as a football fan, meeting Thierry Henry. I mean, again, most of my fan moments have come via work. When I was at the Sun, I got invited to an Arsenal training event and I got to meet Henry, Vieira, so that was great. You know, like, I mean, going out for dinner. So we did an interview day with Hulk Hogan. And then I went out for dinner in the evening with Hulk Hogan, Eric Bischoff. We went to Gaucho, which is a lovely steak restaurant. Andy Barton, who was Dixie's number 2 at the time. And Hogan and Eric, they really enjoyed the interviews that day. We had a couple of guys that were sort of big WCW fans from back in the day. They really enjoyed the interviews and they were just chatting about some of the questions they'd been asked and some of what they thought about different wrestlers they'd worked with. And just to be there as a fan, listening to these two legends talking, you know, getting to go out with Ric Flair, all those sort of things. But just having the impact in the UK, just being there at the shows with, you know, and I always say this, and it's the truth, is that I look forward to seeing the journalists as much as the wrestlers. I'm looking forward to sitting next to you and seeing you, meeting your friends and family, watching the show with you, going around meeting the other journalists as I am, seeing all the wrestlers again. So I just love it. We're all one big family.
Cool. And final one, funniest story in your profession?
Oh, funny story. I mean, this is really sad. I don't really, because I'm the sort of the PR guy, the professional guy, I don't really get involved in pranks and jinx and things like that. I honestly can't think of anything. If I think of something, I'll text you later and you can post edit it in. But just, I mean, I would say most special moment is those moments where we've really achieved something, where, you know, we've got some great coverage for a story or we've really had something great with the fans. I remember doing something with Kurt Angle. I mean, this is funny in a childish way. I was doing something with Kurt Angle and he looked one way and I slipped on a Hulk Hogan mask. And he looked back and I said, "Hey, brother," and all that was quite funny. Or I remember once when I was working with Ric Flair, we'd done quite a few interviews back to back. And he said to me, you know my story, you know my answers. Next one's a phoner. Could you just do it for me? So the guy phones up and I said, "Hello, it's Ric Flair." And I didn't even try to change my accent. And for the first minute, the journalist thought he may actually be talking to Ric Flair until I said, "Oh, I'll put him on now, really."
Yeah. Cool. Well, Simon, it's an absolute pleasure to talk to you. But before we go, tell everyone about SRX, where they can find it and find you on social media.
Oh, James, thank you very much. Yes, so SRX, I mean, we've got a number of clients. Impact Wrestling is probably the most interesting to talk about, especially with other guys that are fans. But I do a lot of work for different charities. I do some work in the Jewish community, a lot of business work. The Essex Chambers of Commerce is one of our clients that do fantastic work connecting different businesses. And in fact, I've got a network meeting with them tomorrow morning. You can find me on Twitter at Simon Rothstein, and we're on Instagram and SRX Consultancy, and that's also our website address, srxconsultancy.com. Please look me up. Obviously always available for PR and social media work, but I appreciate a lot of people listening to this will sort of want to get into journalism, maybe want to use some of our impact talent. So contact me through there, put you on the mailing list, and we'll see what we can do. Like you were saying earlier, James, managed to, you know, help you out at the start of your career with stuff, and I love sort of helping discover new talent. So that'd be fantastic.
Awesome. And yeah, hopefully when we get the shows all up and running, yeah, we'll try and do this again in person next time.
Brilliant. Yeah, hope so, mate. Thank you.